Hey everyone, welcome to Achievement Through Attitude TV. I'm your host and attitude coach, Phil Stringer. As we all know, this program is about getting an attitude adjustment, or for some of you it may be about finding an attitude to get your motor running. It's about the power of attitude and what it can help you accomplish. And it can help you accomplish everything that you seek to do in life. At the end of the day though, what I hope that this show does is I hope that it lets you inspire your attitude to be amazing. Over the first 5 weeks, guys, we've learned about an attitude of perseverance with Carlos, the Navy SEAL that was paralyzed from the waist down, who's a world-class endurance athlete, and by the way, has just qualified for the Olympic time trials. We learned about laughter and passion and how that's an integral part of having an amazing attitude, and we learned that from Michael and Orchid Pallmeyer. And then we got to Sergeant Major Ron Kirby, who gave us a lot of attitude about leadership and being able to meet the challenge. And then after that, we went to Mr. Craig Heisel, who taught us about guts. You know, and sometimes when we're down on the mat and we don't know where else to go, you've got to look because guts is enough. And then we learned about no excuses from Mr. Brother Kitty. And when you have no excuses, you have a clear vision to go ahead and accomplish all of your dreams, your goals, and your aspirations. Everybody that comes on this show has a vision. And with that vision, they have emotion. And what those emotions do, it moves them to perform. It moves them to pursue their dreams. Emotion is power. Emotion moves us to motion. So with that said, today we're going to talk about having a vision and having motion, or I'm sorry, having emotion. And there's no one better to do that than the gentleman that I'm going to bring on this show today. He helped fill in the canvas that was Hilton Head Island back in the early 70s. He is an architect and a philosopher extraordinaire. So guys, get ready to get your attitude adjusted with Mr. Joe Hall, next on Achievement Through Attitude TV. Guys, welcome back to Achievement Through Attitude TV. Today we're talking about vision and emotion and how they work together. And there's no one better to do that than Mr. Joe Hall, who has been an architect here on the island for a long time. And in the little bit that I got to talk to him, he's quite the philosopher. So Joe, yes. Welcome to Achievement Through Attitude TV. Thanks, you very
Phil.
much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Let's start back in the early 70s when you first got here and why you came down here.
Yeah. I got here in the summer of 1971 and never left.
Never left.
Yep. Took time enough to go home and pack the bags, pack the office, and come back and make a career. And I promised myself I'd stay here only as long as there was the sense of newness. And I haven't left yet.
Yeah. I can see that. A lot of people, we talked about that. They get here and they think they're going to come down for a little bit, and the next thing you know, it's been 20 years. And I know right. In your case, it's almost 40 years now.
Indeed.
Right?
Yep. There is that story for all those listeners out there who came here for that first visit and right. For some reason made that big commitment.
Right.
We don't know what that is, but it happens more than you think.
Now, when you
did it happen to you?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. So there.
I came down and called Mom and said I'm moving here, and she said okay. Went home, quit my job, came down, and right. 20 years later.
Yep.
But when you came down, there was nothing here. You basically, I said in the beginning of the show that you kind of added some brush strokes to what the naked canvas was of Hilton Head back then. You and some pretty cool people.
You bet. When I got here in '71, strangely enough, it was all in the can. It mm-hmm. was all planned. All the planning had been done. All the roads and streets were in. The infrastructure was there, wow. And the 3 major plantations were all up and running, which was Palmetto Dunes, right. Sea Pines, Port Royal Plantation.
Port Royal, okay.
Yeah.
So Hilton Head Plantation was down the road then. I didn't realize that.
That came a little bit later in the plan of things, but it was all there. Charles Frazier, who was the genius who put it all together and for whom we all bought into his theories.
Right.
You know, that the land is everything.
Right. And
the architecture secondary.
Right.
And that was kind of a nice way of looking at it.
And that's how you approached it.
And one of the great things about this was architectural review. And while a lot of people think that the review boards are a hindrance, they're actually not.
Right.
They're the ones who see that the ensemble stays there and that it all has a whole idea where we don't get too caught up in our own private projects.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
It works.
You know, and that, you know, Charles Frazier had a vision, and then you bought into that vision.
You bet.
And then we talked about when you have that vision, there's an emotion inside you.
Yes.
Because you want to get to that vision. You want to create that vision. And I know that's what you do.
There are two things about this. It's the passion of the amateur and it's the emotional detachment of the pro.
Right.
And so it's a very strange mix of two pieces in there.
Right.
I go back to an old story I heard some time ago when Mabel Mercer, the great singer, was being interviewed, and everybody said, "You must be exhausted when you get home every night." And she said, "No, I sing the songs, you add the emotion, and that's what those of us who are professional have to do. We have to make the background, we have to make the set, we have to make the environment that lets everybody else add their own emotion."
I'm going to have to write that down. I like that. When we talked, you said something, and this struck me. You said that architecture is frozen music. Elaborate a little bit on that.
That comes from Goethe, the great German author who gave us the story of Faust.
I'm shaking my head like I know who that is, but I don't.
In
But anyway,
Bluffton,
yeah.
we call it Goethe.
Okay.
But he's, Goethe, he's the one who said that architecture is frozen music. And if you look at it, the owner becomes the patron and the architect becomes the composer and the contractor is the conductor, and then everybody who is on the job adds their notes.
So we're making beautiful music at the end of the day.
And like music, good architecture evokes an emotional response to the people who are going through it.
Well, you also said, and I love this, you said, what drives creative people to create?
Here it is, yeah. This is from Sigmund Freud.
Right, now I know who he is.
Sigmund Freud, who got it.
Yeah, he got it.
Said that all creative people, now listen to this, create for three motives. See if you can guess. Money, fame, and beautiful lovers.
Beautiful lovers.
Yeah, creative people need to be the beloved.
Right.
We need that kind of adulation. We need that kind of a, you know, it's tough being the beloved, but many of us need it. Some of us don't.
Right.
But there you go.
So you've taken all these philosophies back in the 70s, and you guys started developing Hilton Head, right?
Yep.
As a collective team.
Indeed. One of the great parts about what happened in all of the plantations is there were enough of us that each of us who came in had our own grammar and our own penmanship. And so we don't have what we see today as the big boys, as I call the big builders who come in. You don't see the repeats. It's all these wonderful little jewels sitting out there saying their own story, saying their own tale. Is great.
Right. Well, I mean, I know, and I can speak for a lot of people, that you did a wonderful job, because it's a beautiful place.
Yep.
And sometimes you forget about that when you live here until actually you're watching it on TV and you look at it and you're like, it's just an amazing, amazing place to live. But when we come back, we're going to learn about, we're going to talk about what you do now as an innovator.
Good.
And I'm excited to hear about that, because I've seen some of the pictures, guys, and it's amazing stuff. So please stay tuned to get your attitude adjusted on Achievement Through Attitude TV with Mr. Joe Hall.
Thanks.
Hey guys, welcome back to Achievement Through Attitude TV. Today we are talking about vision, and we're talking about emotion and how they work together. And I have architect and philosopher extraordinaire with me today, Mr. Joe Hall, to do that. Joe,
Hey, Phil.
let's get right back to it.
All right.
Let's talk about what you do and how you're involved out at the community college. With there's the program out there that you let kids see where architecture was and where it's going.
Technical College of the Low Country.
Okay.
I got involved through Larry Heichel, who is working very closely with Tom Leitzel, who is the president. And they have started largely through Larry and through Charlie McCracken, a program called the Teaching Collection.
Okay.
And it's all about realia, and it's all about the material culture.
Wow.
And it is so important as to how what we own and what the things we use and tools we use describe our culture, that this will be a very important part of that technical college.
So what
great.
What it does is it lets people actually get their hands on.
Students get to see, for instance, they may see a half a dozen different chairs, and each one of those chairs describes an era.
Right. It's very cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You know, who would have thought that the chair, you know, you can line up 10 chairs and you can say what period of time, why they looked that way, what the scale was.
That's pretty amazing. Pretty simple too.
I know.
You know, that's the thing about it.
Well, that's the thing about education, because education really sandwiches time and experience. And unless we have the experience of being able to see things like a collection of chairs and understand their impact on the culture, it really is tough. So it's great stuff. So it goes beyond learning how to weld, and it takes you further than learning how to take somebody's temperature or do that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I like that, because I know you believe we probably lose sight of where we have been, because we're so involved with where we're at.
Right.
And we don't realize how we got from A to B.
Right. As Mama used to say, if you want to know where you're going, take a good look where you've been.
Exactly. Now, with that said, tell me about your philosophy right now with your design ideas. You said something before we started I thought was very cool.
What did it say
about
again?
the dream?
The dream.
The dream maker?
The dream maker. I really am the dreams interpreter.
There you go.
People come to me with a dream and they say, Joe, I've got these ideas, and I'm the one who makes it happen.
Right.
Because it's one thing to have the dream, it's the other thing to bring it to reality. So I take them through the whole process, and it is a process, and through all the approving agency. You know, it's pretty complicated to build a building these days.
Sure.
Yep, and so in order that that emotion doesn't get lost, I bring the professional aspects of it to the table and make it come to reality.
So you take their vision and you let their emotion jump up and down, and your emotion stays.
My job is not to be emotionally involved.
Exactly.
But now, also to have fun in the meantime, not to just be.
Right. Well, it's got to be an exciting experience for someone to come to you and have access to you for you to build their home. That's a big deal, because I know that, because the gentleman that I see on a daily basis, he goes, if I ever win the lottery, he goes, I'm telling you what, JoeHall will build my home. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Because I know right now you work on this, the innovative part of these modular homes that you build.
Right. Somewhere along the line, in order to bring housing to those who need it, we need to involve the factory.
Right. And there's a couple pictures, a couple sketches.
Yeah, that's it. The Southern Living House plans. That's known as the Blufftonian. And here's the factory showing how the house is made. Actually, it's built from the inside out. First the studs, then the sheetrock, and then the outside. There it is going in. It's the great shoe boxes being lifted into place.
So it's in pieces, and you just, because, you know, I was looking at this, you know, and I'm modular homes. I'm like, you got two sides and you stick them together. That is not the case with these homes.
Not the double wide anymore,
no.
Although that's still a good way of doing it. This was in the historic district of Savannah, and the house went up in a day. Everybody thinks it's a freshly painted old house.
You're kidding. That is... No. That's very impressive.
That is very impressive.
Why don't you give yourself a pat on the back for that one? That's amazing.
Well, that's what it's all about. You know, we can build vernacular architecture in the factory and bring it to the sites.
Now, how long did it take you to, I guess, come up with this or create this?
What is it they say? Overnight success is usually about 14 years. We're halfway through.
That just blows my mind. I cannot believe that picture that we saw was in the historic district.
Right.
That's pretty. I mean, that lends itself to the quality of what you're doing. If they let you put something like that in the historic district over there, it's the quality has to be unbelievable.
With all of the plantations that we work in, their goal is the end result. They don't care how it's built as long as it has a certain appearance when it's done. So The review boards are great about that. We have some houses in some of the very particular plantations, and sure enough, it works.
On Hilton Head?
Yeah, on Hilton Head, Palmetto Bluff.
Palmetto Bluff has...
Yes.
Really?
So, yep. So it's good.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
that's the way to start a trend. The old-fashioned trailer came from the bottom up, and the modular house is coming from the top down, because the people who are doing this have had their boat made in their factory, the jet made in the factory, their Rolls Royce made in the factory.
Think
and
of
so,
that, yeah. That makes sense, right?
Really.
We get the house made in the factory now too.
Really.
Now, what's the turnaround time on something like that? Does it depend on the scale?
It depends on the scale, but usually when a house gets up and running, it's a couple or 3 days on the assembly line. It takes longer to set up the assembly line than it does to run it through.
Wow.
I know.
Now, in 1970, did you think that this is where you'd be in 2011?
Yes. Yeah, this is one that we've had to look at for a long time and somehow never got to it. But now that what I came here to do 40 years ago is done, I've got the time to do some of the other stuff that was back there.
Well, you know, it's amazing what you have done.
Yep.
How you've contributed to Hilton Head Island.
Yep.
And I thank you very much, because it's a beautiful place. And I know all the people that visit here would like to thank you. And I'd like to thank you for being on Achievement Through Attitude TV. I appreciate your time and your knowledge and your insight. It was awesome. And as we do now weekly, we like to give everybody a little bling before they leave the show. And this week we're going to give Joe the book called What's Your Attitude? And it just says Never Surrender. Joe, thanks again.
Phil, thank you.
No problem. Guys, remember, every day when you wake up and your feet hit the floor, you have an opportunity to do something amazing, to be amazing. Remember to use the power of attitude to never hang your head and never surrender. Remember to have a vision, and to remember to let your emotions lead you. And guys, thank you very much for tuning in to Achievement Through Attitude TV, and we'll see you next week to get your attitude adjusted.